and Guidry goes, let's go look at something that took place 40 years ago. Who cares? Okay, that's political.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world, whatever you're watching. Welcome to the Lawyer's Den. I'm William Trezevant, and I'm your host. And as you know, some of our regular viewers, we get into some really difficult subjects to talk about, areas of the law that affect our daily lives, or areas that we consider to be kind of important to explore. But on our journey, as we also know, I cannot do it alone, and I have my erstwhile friend who I'm going to introduce to make sure that we have everything in proper reference. Now, my friend hails from the state of Florida, and during his time in Florida, he became what is known as a chess master. He's a three-time state champion of chess for the state of Florida. But along his illustrious career, he earned his BA, his MBA, and his LLM. And along the journey for his legal degree, he spent time at Oxford University and later achieving his LLM at the University of Denver. But that was not it for my fine gentleman. He is the author of over 24 books. He has been an esteemed professor at various institutions of higher education for over 11 years. He is a CEO and has under his belt the establishment of over 6 startup companies. And so with that, I welcome the mouth from the south, my erstwhile friend, the gentleman, the scholar, and Nick Ivey.
Mouth of the South has arrived. It's about time. You know,
Hey,
Bill.
Nick, how are you?
I'm always doing great, Bill. Not like you. I always have a good day. I mean, I have a good day, Bill. Hopefully you do too. I'm trying to be a little bit more politically correct. Well, today we have a really good panel and a really great topic. So let's start bringing the dead. Okay. And first of all, this lady also went to the University of Denver. That's where I found her. She went to the University of Denver, received her law degree and her master's in law from the University of Denver after hailing from Lithuania. Now lives in the city of Miami. Let's bring in the class of this group, Guidry Stantonite. Guidry, as they would say, right? Or at least I'm getting close.
Yes, you are.
I can butcher any language. I'm universal, can do that. All right, now this gentleman, actually, I did find trolling around in the state of Washington, but he originally hails from Utah, received his law degree from BYU University, and then also received a master's in law from George Washington. He is now like in the Attorney General's office in Utah. Shh. Let's bring in our constitutional scholar, Jeff Teichman. Jeff, welcome to the show.
All right.
Thank you, Bill and Nick. I'm glad to be back.
Yeah. You got me into the Supreme Court of the United States. That's a little antidote. So otherwise I would never be admitted because they didn't really want me. But Jeff helped me in there. And this person went to Fordham University and then went to the State University of New York at Albany, receiving his law degree, then went back to New York City to practice in the Big Banana or Big Apple, the street fighter of our group. Let's bring in Fernando Leal. Fernando, welcome to the show.
Hey, glad to be back, and it's the University at Buffalo.
That's right.
Buffalo.
State University. I should have known because look at what Bill has behind his thing. He's got a tiger behind his tank or whatever that thing might be. Okay, and now here we go. This one has the long introduction. He actually went to the University of Southern California, where he majored in rowing, then went on to The Ohio State University, where he received his law degree. He also went to the University of Alabama, receiving a master's degree, and then went to NYU, receiving another master's degree. A person that's educated way beyond his intelligence. He is a professor at Georgia College. Let's bring in our professor, Adam Lamparero. Adam, welcome to the show.
Great to be here. Thank you.
Who says that after that type of introduction?
I'm a friendly guy.
Okay. And then, of course, we have this gentleman who also went to Fordham University and the State University of New York at Buffalo, the den master himself, William Trezevant. Bill Trezevant, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Nick, and once again, welcome.
Okay, now the thing is, what's our topic and who's our subject matter expert, Bill?
Well, our subject matter expert, Nick, happens to be Gigi Stashuanet. And so she, young lady, I hope you're ready, because today we are going to explore free speech in all of its forms. And tonight it happens to deal with the issue of nudity. Is public nudity free speech, or is it just a free peep show, Guidry? Because we always talk about when I can speak, where I can speak, and normally everybody gets to say, why can't I do it? So now, Guidry, are these people who I think call themselves body freedom advocates? Do they have the protection of law? What are we talking about, Guidry, and what's going on? We got people running naked in the streets during these protests. Guidry, please.
Okay, Bill, so I would probably use the most favorite word of any of the attorney, and it would be it depends. Primarily, when it comes to decision whether nudity is protected under the First Amendment, the Supreme Court has said and has been applying a four-pronged test that it said in O'Brien case. And probably one of the more recent cases in 90s, Barnes v. Glenn Theater, that the Supreme Court applied that four-pronged test. And I would like to, prior to going to that case, I would like to mention and talk shortly about that four-pronged test that is applied to content neutral speech. So first, the Supreme Court needs to decide in deciding whether nudity is expression and those protected under the First Amendment. The first Supreme Court will look at the regulation by the government and whether that regulation falls within the government's police power. Second, the Supreme Court will look at whether that regulation, ordinance, law is used for furtherance of substantial government's interest to regulate morality and social order. Third, the Supreme Court will look whether that government regulation is not related to the suppression of the First Amendment expression right. And fourth, lastly, the Supreme Court will look whether that incidental restriction on the First Amendment is not greater than the essential need for such regulation. And now, taking and applying this test to, let's say, the case that I just mentioned that was decided in 1990s, the case involved two adult operated businesses in Iowa that tried to incorporate complete nudity in their complete nudity dance in their facilities. And in that particular case, they took the case further, saying that the city's ordinance that prevented complete nudity was overly broad. Supreme Court sided with the city, and Supreme Court applied that four-pronged test. Of course, all of the elements were met, and specifically Supreme Court said, well, usually, and all Supreme Court justices agreed that nude dancing is to a certain extent expression. However, that expression does not demand for absolute protection of the First Amendment. And they said that in that particular case, the strip club owners, by this, by this limitation for the Supreme Court, for the strip dancers have to wear pastries and G-strings, only incidentally limit their ability to express themselves while dancing naked, and therefore their expression was not entirely protected under the First Amendment, and the state or ordinance was in position to enact certain limitations. And in all the cases, and especially the example that you mentioned, Bill, can people be naked outside in public places? And no, Supreme Court decided in a recent case in San Francisco, the court decided that in San Francisco, where this movement was for people to be naked outside, and particularly case of Traub, the lady and her husband who tried to get married naked, and they also appeared in various interviews naked, the Supreme Court said that no, city, when arresting and fining them for public indecency, was actually correct, because they limit such expression to protect the city's interest, to avoid obstruction in regulating the traffic of pedestrians and vehicle traffic, and also to protect people who are not ready to anticipating to see public indecency, including children. And I think this opinion has been carried throughout the Supreme Court opinion when it comes to nudity, public nudity.
Okay, excellent. Well, now let's bring in the rest of the group because Guidry, that was certainly comprehensive. And thank you for that. I mean, this is going to be a difficult subject, but I'd first like just to go do our lightning round, and we're going to go right around the horn. I'm looking for initial reactions to this, and I'm gonna go in the order along the bottom: Jeff, Fernando, and Adam. Jeff, please. Mike, right along. Fernando and Adam.
Bill, I am on record having campaigned as a candidate for the Washington State Court of Appeals in 2006. I criticized my opponent, who was a sitting Court of Appeals judge, for an opinion that she joined where she held that self-stimulation by nude dancers was free speech. I attacked that, and I said that I don't understand how that is speech in any way. And I am still of that opinion. I don't believe that nude dancing is speech. We try to make it fit by calling it expressive conduct. I'm not saying that words are the only way to communicate, but I really think James Madison would be shocked into another world with the idea that what he was doing when he drafted the First Amendment was enabling people to dance nude in public. I don't think that goes anywhere near the purposes of the First Amendment. I don't think it's speech at all.
Okay. All right. Fernando.
This all depends on how we're going to define public. If we're defining public walking down the street, then I am in accordance with the Supreme Court, because the truth of the matter is I don't want to see some guy with Animal Farm boobs or some women with flapjack boobs walking down the street making me throw up. If we're going to define public as an enclosed space, an establishment where women dance nude, then no. It is, to me, it's expressful. The answer to Jeff's question is she's expressing herself. I'm expressing myself in the best way I know how. So, it's an expression that my First Amendment teacher used in law school. Where are their feet? So if their feet are on public property outside where the government can regulate it, then yes. If their feet are on private property, then my answer is no.
Okay, Adam, you're coming up. Adam, it just seems to me, I just want to make this specific point because I want to make sure for our audience that we're crystal clear. The law is gender neutral, so we're not just talking about women dancing naked. We're also talking about men dancing naked. Remember, there was Chippendales, and the right should be free. But Adam, I'm really curious. I mean, where do you come down on this? We've got three different opinions. I'm coming back to Nick and then Guidry. Adam?
Nudity should receive absolutely no First Amendment protection.
Wow.
You cannot tell me that some stripper in a strip club who's collecting dollar bills from some slob who's sitting there drinking way too many beers is expressing some type of speech or some type of message or commenting on some type of political issue. It's ridiculous, and it reflects a far too broad view of the First Amendment that the Supreme Court has endorsed. The Supreme Court in Snyder versus Phelps said it's okay to stand outside of a funeral of a gay man and have a sign that says "God hates fags." The Supreme Court has held that pornography is protected by the First Amendment. The Supreme Court has held that political donations in Citizens United versus FEC are speech. So we have totally distorted the First Amendment. It's far too broad, and it protects activity that is neither expressive nor valuable.
Okay, Nick, you're up. I mean, wow. Adam, I'm surprised, but we're going to get back to you. Don't think you're off the hook. Nick, please.
I agree with Adam.
Oh.
I'm just kidding. Okay, the thing is, there's...
Nick, you had me for a second.
I know I did. So the thing is, well, it's just like this. Okay, come on. Come on, guys, gals. When I was in Europe, they had nudity everywhere. It was called painting and art. I mean, it was in... Did you ever see Michelangelo's David?
That's different, though.
I see. It's different because it's a statue in Italy, and I think it actually falls under Guidry's full frontal test or whatever she said. Was it a full frontal test or whatever you were saying? Okay, so the thing is, he was naked. There was a lot of naked women. I mean, it's art, is what it is. So I don't know why it isn't protected. I mean, that's the reason we have the Constitution, is to protect art like this. And so when Adam goes, I'll give them no protection at all. You know, I guess if he was in Italy, he'd go burn all the paintings like one of these monks did, Maro, years ago, because, oh, these things are bad, you know, and throw them all in a bonfire and kill them all. So he's totally wrong. Once again, there is freedom of speech. We have that in our Constitution, and this is a right that people have to do. Okay.
Okay, Guidry, you set us all up. Now you've heard from our panelists, and you know, what are your thoughts, Guidry? You're the advocate now.
Well, you know, I will agree with Nick here. I think that someone said,
What a surprise.
what would be the definition of art? And art really strives to shock, the shocking value, yeah, or like value to make people feel or think. So really, what is art the definition belongs to anyone to give it. I don't think that it would be very democratic to really ban any kind of nude dancing just because women take agency over their bodies and make money for that. I agree here with Fernando. I think that, yes, certain conduct should be regulated different in private places. And in fact, if you look at the history of our legal precedents, it has been, we can see that Supreme Court does not protect nudity, especially nudity, you know, dancing for money, commercial nudity. It gets a very, very, very limited tolerance there, I would say. Even now, but even if you look at the artistic expressions, you know, nudity in opera, nudity in theater, it also is criticized significantly, although people, spectators who go there, pay for that and expect to see that. And you know why? Because the opinion is of the secondary effect of such conduct. They're saying that women's nudity or nudity for money actually create that or engages more into the violence in the society, morality in the society. So I think here is also needs to be analyzed more of how we perceived it and whether it is well-deserved categorization.
Okay, no, that's fine, because I want to come to you, Fernando, specifically on that prong, because part of the four-prong test is that the government is enforcing or has a legitimate interest, and that is either for the public health or safety. And then what the court has said is you measure that by the secondary effects, and the secondary effects involve morality. Now, Fernando, you made the point where their feet are. If their feet are inside, they can do whatever they want. But if they're outside, then you don't like it. Now, Fernando, what gives you the right to decide what the morality is for an area? I mean, what if we disagree? Why do I have to listen to you under this morality test? Because isn't that the slippery slope to apply to anything else? Like if I want to protest the way Adam was upset with the person across the street yelling "fag" at the funeral of someone that gave their life in service to the country. Fernando.
Oh, when you're walking a public street, the government has a right to regulate that public street because it is theirs, and they have a right. They have a right to regulate for an orderly society, and they have a right to regulate. Look, the example that Guidry gave. We have vehicle and traffic laws. If that's the case, then forget those and let people drive any which way they want, backwards, forwards, and whatever. There's certain walking down the street butt naked isn't an expression. It just means you're either crazy, you can't afford clothes, or something else. You're not expressing anything.
Well, they would tend to differ. I mean, first let me get to this issue of morality, because I mean, you say you advance the argument that the government can regulate anything that's on the street. Well, then where does that stop? It may start with nudity. What if it goes to style of clothing? What if it goes to everything else? Because under your definition, it's so broad that the government can step in and do stuff. And I'm not quite sure that even Adam would agree with such an overarching thing. And Adam, I'm coming to you just after Fernando responds. And then you're up. Adam, Fernando, and then Adam, please.
I don't think I made it that broad. I was in agreement with the case law that has come out of the Supreme Court as it relates to being in public. Now, I am not in agreement with the case law that has come out of the Supreme Court when it relates to nudity inside private establishments. They're not drawing public funds. There is, to me, there's an expression there. Part of the expression is, hey, I need to pay my rent. But nonetheless, it is a private establishment with closed doors, closed walls. If you want to go in, you can. If you don't have to. You can keep just walking on by. Now, I understand that they use suitors concurring opinion. I believe it was Souter, where he said that you're advancing that secondary,
That's right.
the secondary effects, which is to protect property tax, and I forget the name of the case, property tax, and keep the criminal element away. It's
right.
nonsense. It's just trying to enforce your morality and your problems with nudity and strippers and everything else. The same with prostitution. It should be legal. It's not. Why? Because people have a bug up their behind.
Okay, all right. Well, I mean, it's a real question of what they have up there behind. But Adam, it seems to me, why are you against, I mean, this overarching, just no protection whatsoever? Because after all, they call themselves freedom body advocates or body freedom advocates. And they're making a point. They're saying, why can't they give interviews in the nude? I mean, they see it as no different than clothing. So it's just clothing taken to an additional thing. And why should they be subject, Adam, under your rules that says absolutely no protection whatsoever? That's a bit draconian, Adam.
Because the First Amendment is intended to protect speech on issues of public concern, political issues, and to respect diverse perspectives, especially those that we find offensive and distasteful. Being nude in public does not convey any message. There's no speech involved. I mean, this panel of lawyers really doesn't see the forest from the trees. There is no speech involved. There's no expression. I mean, let's think about it this way. I want to go outside on Main Street and have sex with my girlfriend. Can I do that? Of course not. Somebody who wants to strip naked in a strip club isn't conveying any message or communicating anything whatsoever. It should receive zero First Amendment protection. I'm not saying it shouldn't be regulated, that it should be regulated, but I'm saying the First Amendment doesn't protect it. Now, as far as artwork goes, that is an entirely different matter. And as usual, Nick and Guidry misrepresent my position, which isn't surprising because Guidry recently got a divorce from the truth. But artwork is expressive activity. Okay? That is very different than the fat guy walking down naked on the street, or the couple having sex on Main Street, or the stripper collecting dollar bills from some slob in some ugly street. That is not expressive, communicative speech on matters of public concern.
Hang on, Adam. I mean, in the form of a protest. I mean, people go out and they protest all the time. So some people use banners. Sometimes people have all their cars honking. I mean, isn't just because they want to grab attention, and isn't being out in the street nude in a large mass bringing attention and thereby highlighting whatever cause it is, so that being nude out on the street or being a body freedom advocate is in fact a legitimate form or way to raise the issue, grab attention, and therefore get their voice heard. Adam, why doesn't that qualify? It does. It has the same effect as
because it's not speech. It's not communicating anything. It's one thing to wear a shirt that says "fuck the draft," United States versus Cohen. That's protected. It's It's one thing to hold a sign outside of a church that says "God hates fags," showing your objection to homosexuality. Snyder versus Phelps, which the court said was okay. But being naked communicates nothing except the narcissistic tendencies of the insecure and those who think that getting attention is equivalent to speech. It's nonsense. Use your common sense, panel.
I have one more question for you, and then I'm coming to you, Nick, and it's going to be the same question. So, Adam, I guess under your theory, if an individual, a body freedom advocate, wrote fuck the Supreme Court on their naked body and walk, that would qualify, and you'd be okay with that. Isn't that right, Adam?
No, I'd be okay with them wearing a shirt. And by the way, these body freedom advocates, is that the newest term? Because let's see, there's 80 genders now. Now there's how many more movements? This is utterly ridiculous. The First Amendment protects offensive, distasteful, unpopular speech, diverse speech on matters of political and public importance. This is nonsense. It should receive zero protection. I'm shocked that Guidry would not agree with me. But again, like I said, she got a divorce from the truth recently.
Okay, well, first of all, body freedom advocates actually came from one of the decisions, and I didn't know it existed.
Is that people who are just trying to give themselves a label to feel important?
Okay, well, you know, Adam, it actually comes out of your school of thought because Scalia really wrote the O'Brien test. But we're going to get back to you.
Well, nobody's perfect, Bill.
Okay, Nick, are you are your people narcissistic because they just want to run around, or are they actively protesting? So Nick and then Guidry, because Adam's throwing some big words around, and Victor Coney, Nick.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, I don't know where he creates his own constitution. He says freedom of speech, but only for government and political reasons. But
certainly for you.
Last time I read the Constitution, it doesn't say that. So I don't know where Adam is putting words into the Constitution that doesn't exist. It says freedom of speech, period. Congress should make no law to to basically violate our freedom of
Yeah,
speech.
I'm speaking when
Not
I'm naked.
freedom of speech for political and these other purposes that satisfy Adam. Okay. And what we're looking at, is artwork. But the real problem is that Adam is stuffed with this morality, being in a southern town, that he just doesn't even see it. But it is artwork.
Nope, hang on. Jeff threw a flag. Jeff, you're in here. Do the drive-by shooting. What's going on here, Jeff? Did you see it?
Well, I want to differentiate between my opinion and Adam's, although I go with him part way. I don't think that Adam is saying that he wants speech only for government spokespersons and that sort of thing. I think what he's saying is that public nudity is not speech. I agree with him on that.
Right.
Now, where I differentiate with him is, I'll give an example. He uses the one all the time about God hates fags, but there was another one. In 1987, a photographer named Andre Serrano created an image of a crucifix depicting Christ on the cross in a jar of his own urine, which he called Piss Christ.
Right.
And it became a subject of big public controversy. Now, as a believing Christian, I am profoundly offended by the idea of someone treating representations of my Savior in that way. However, under the Constitution, that is a message, it is speech, and he has the right to do it. And I disagree with it profoundly. I am offended by it, but he gets to do it because we have to put up with a lot of speech in our country which we find objectionable. The fact of public nudity to me is not that I find it objectionable. It's that I don't find it to be speech. And that's where I come down, and that's where I think Nick is out to lunch.
Okay, Guidry, please. And then Fernando, you up. But Guidry?
Yes, but you don't have to find it as a speech. You have to find it as expression, freedom of expression.
Where do you find that in the Constitution? Is that in the Lithuanian Constitution?
No, but you find it in the history of jurisprudence. They're
Oh, okay.
And Adam, but your example of you and your girlfriend having sex in a public, there I would provide or apply completely different standards.
That's expressive. It's expressing love.
I know, but
okay, well, hang on, Adam.
There I would apply obscenity standard from Miller. So I think we're talking about completely different standards right now. but in reality, I think that I always think about what would be the long-term effect of certain regulation, what would be okay a little bit right now, what it could cost in the future. And if we look in the history, women's bodies, women's conduct, women's rights have been oppressed for over and over and over again. And yes, Bill mentioned it correctly that this topic is is gender neutral, but majority of the people who, let's say, express themselves would be women in certain establishments. And just to put a blank no because someone finds it offensive in their understanding of what is freedom of speech or expression, I think would be absolutely unjust. And even we don't need to look far. When the women's ability to breastfeed in public was taken from the law books as illegal, it was in 2018, all 50 states, only in 2018, all 50 states said that, actually a woman can breastfeed her baby in public. So I think it demonstrates how behind we are in understanding of the woman's body and the freedom of expression and opinion like Adam and regression that much, saying that it would be completely unprotected by our Constitution would be very detrimental.
Okay, see, Fernando, I mean, Guidry raises, she squarely goes at that prong of the test that talks about public morality. Now, listen, it seems that we have really changed in terms of what our public morals are, say, since, the 1950s, because that was 70 years ago. So to the extent that our values change over time in society, how come people can continue to use the morality exception to public nudity as a basis to ban it? Isn't it just draconian, non-reflective of where we are in the world, and actually oppressive to half of our population? Fernando, why can't you just see that?
I have no idea what you're talking about, Bill, because so far I've been agreeing mostly with Guidry,
Well, no,
where
outside. No,
it's.
Fernando, you had a
Let me finish.
Okay.
Let me finish, because you're the one that brought up the morality clause.
Let him
Asked
finish,
about it.
Bill.
So I answered your question. Now all of a sudden you're trying to paint it into something else. The end result is here that if they're going to have a morality prong, what's going to happen is that every time there's a new court, people have new moralities and just going to apply it in that fashion. It's what happens with every single law that we have. As time evolves, they apply it with the way times are then and now. So I'm not sure how you're painting me into something else. I mean, maybe dementia setting in or something. I don't know, CTE.
I think so.
No, go ahead, Adam. You were gonna jump on the train before I get over to Nick, but
Well,
that's
can I just say something?
yeah, by all means.
Well, I just want to respond to Jeff and Guidry briefly. Jeff was talking about artwork in which the depiction of Jesus was conveying a political message, obviously about Christianity. That's obviously protected. I'm not talking about artwork and that type of expression. This panel is conflating it. Now, as far as Guidry goes, Guidry has the audacity to say that me having sex with my girlfriend on Main Street would be obscenity, but she would allow 20 fat slobs to walk down Main Street naked. Obviously, Guidry doesn't have any taste, but that's beside the point. The First Amendment was never designed to protect people waltzing naked. They are not speaking or saying anything. They're not giving a political message. They are simply not doing anything that the First Amendment was ever designed to protect. It should be banned and receive no First Amendment protection.
Okay, see, that's interesting because I mean, I'm looking at the decision, and Justice Stevens wrote under this, what Fernando thinks that I'm just making up, under this public health and morality provision. Justice Stevens wrote that this is now the fourth time that the court declared unwanted or unpopular speech, which could be prohibited simply due to the effects that happen to be associated with that speech. That's the morality prong. And Justice Stevens said that this entire thing was a slippery slope. So, Nick, is Justice Stevens right? Or, I mean, are we all getting divorced, or is Adam right? I mean, and Fernando clearly doesn't understand. Maybe, he needs more books. Nick?
Hold on.
I mean, Adam wants to bring us into.
I'm going to throw a flag on the moderator when you're done.
Yeah, you should throw it on the.
Yes, you should be ashamed.
Okay, the thing is, Adam wants to bring us into Victorian times because the thing is that's basically where he lives in, and just remember, there are quite a few, like I said, paintings out there that he would probably be aghast at, because Olympia, that was by Monet, it sits in the Musée d'Orsay. Oh, and she's a naked lady. We can't see that. We need the government to come in and shut it down. If you're in Miami, where Guidry is, okay, they have this this fest in Halloween time, the Fantasy Fest. Oh, what are you going to do? Arrest all those people in Key West? What about the people in Miami Beach that wear body paint? Adam would round them up and arrest them, saying,
absolutely.
Oh, no, I mean, the thing is, so Adam's solution is that the naked body is not an expression, and that these people, the government, he backs the government's right to go arrest people that have body paint, arrest people that are at Fantasy Fest, arrest people in Seattle, because they have their naked bicycle ride. I mean, I don't get where this guy is backing the government to put people who are doing nothing wrong in jail. You should go after the murderers and the thieves instead of after some person walking naked down the beach.
All right, Fernando, your flag, if you can remember it, because I'm not quite sure, buddy. You're looking.
Oh, I remember it.
Okay.
At no point in time did I say that you were making up the morality part, that you didn't get it correct or whatever. You're obfuscating my point. The point that I made is that the court created that section, and then I cited to the concurring opinion where it comes from in answer to your question. Now, do I agree with it or not? If you're talking about in the street and you're simply just walking down the street naked and you're not expressing any type of political viewpoint at all, yes, that should be blocked. That just makes no sense. There is if you're in body paint and you're expressing something, that's different. No, those people shouldn't be harassed and arrested. They have a right to do that. And the test here is it expression, not speech, not that we're talking. Are we expressing ourselves? And that's where everybody starts mixing up this point.
Okay, Jeff, body paint, does that change it for you, Jeff?
Well, I mean, no, not really. I think it depends on the circumstances and what the message is. However, I mean, I wouldn't ban, for example, teaching of the Sistine ceiling in art courses, even in junior high school, because it's not only a religious message, it's one of the treasures of our civilization, and there's naked people all over the ceiling there. The thing that I am suggesting is that public nudity of the kind we're talking about here doesn't express anything except I want to be nude in public, and most of the public doesn't want to see it. The idea of free speech means I can say what I want. It doesn't guarantee me an audience. And I don't have a right to go imposing my views and getting in people's faces if they don't want to see that. And so I don't see that just wandering around nude in public is speech in any way. I do believe that certain offensive expressions, like the sign that said God hates fags, which I think is abhorrent, or the piss Christ representation, which I think is also abhorrent. But those are genuinely speech. They genuinely have a message of social and political importance, whether or not I agree with it, which I don't.
Gidry, does body paint, I've got two questions for you. The first one is, does body paint change that dynamic for you?
It does. I do.
Okay.
I think if there is a message.
Well, my second question is, does the body paint, because it seems that there's an emerging difference, does the body paint need to contain a message, or can it just be body paint without a message whatsoever? That is a person just walking down the street nude, painted blue. Or does that person need to be walking down the street painted blue with a sign that says, I, and then fill in the blank?
Is that person wearing G-strings and pastries?
Oh, that
the complete nudity versus I was thinking when we were talking, and I was very curious to hear opinion of our esteemed male panel about, let's say, a topless self-expression. Would you see it differently?
Sexist thing to say.
Okay, no.
What I was thinking about 2016 case in New Hampshire when a woman was doing yoga exercises on a beach, and she was fined for that and arrested for that. And her argument was that it was discriminatory. Why she has to cover her breast when men can walk bare, open breast from the very beginning. And I was wondering to hear your opinion. I have my own opinion about that, which differs from complete nudity. Do you think that we should kind of be more progressive, or do you think that it's very rightful regulation?
Okay, there's Gidry's challenge, and we're going to go Adam, Fernando, Jeff, and then Nick. You're going to have the deck to kind of explain what gibberish they came up with. Is there a male bias that just wants to keep women oppressed through their, 18th century, 17th century view? Adam?
I'm not surprised that Gidry would find any way to make this about sexism. Of course, and victimization yet again. I reject her question. And I'm also appalled that she has the audacity to call me and my girlfriend obscene. Gidry, you should apologize. The bottom line is that Fernando is right. If you are expressing an idea, however unpopular, on some public or political issue, of course it's protected, even if it's distasteful, offensive, or unpopular. Being naked in public conveys absolutely nothing. It should receive zero First Amendment protection.
All right, Fernando. Gidry's question.
Yeah. I do agree with her that there is a bias, because men have been walking around topless in parks, playing sports, or just hanging out suntanning for years. And I don't know if it was New Hampshire, but I know New York State, this was litigated. I believe the woman was either New York City or Rochester. I don't remember where it was. She said that it was discriminatory for her to sunbathe topless when the guy laying next to her was okay and he didn't get a ticket or whatever. And I believe it was the Court of Appeals for New York State that said that she is right. So in New York, you have men and women both have the right to lay topless and suntan or whatever. Now, personally, I think there are plenty of men that should be wearing shirts, just like there are plenty of women that should be wearing shirts when they're suntanning out their topless, because, you know, this isn't a bunch of Victoria's Secret models that are walking around topless, or, you know, a bunch of, you know, Mr. Atlas is walking around topless, a bunch of fat, doughy guys like me. And, you know, I keep my shirt on because I don't want to make anyone vomit.
Okay, all right, Jeff, I'm coming to you, and then Nick, I'm coming to you. But Jeff, I want to add a bit of a twist here, and that is simply to say that we do a broadcast internationally with our audience, and I'm a little concerned because one of the distinctions that we have as this nation is that we try. Some would argue too much to protect the rights of minorities in order to protect their speech. But doesn't that fundamentally define us as separate and, as we see it, better than more repressive societies around the globe? For example, certain nations that severely restrict dress codes for women without referring to anyone in particular. Jeff, does that change your mind? I mean, shouldn't we be more progressive and extend to the farthest reaches of the edge of the protection of the First Amendment, particularly to the body freedom advocates? Jeff?
Well, I agree with most of that. I believe we should tolerate a lot of expression, but it has to be expression. Like I said, I don't think people wandering around naked in public is speech. Now, I would also suggest
body paint.
I would also suggest that if everything is speech, nothing is. For example, let me suppose that I want to stab my neighbor with a long knife. Because I hate him. Am I expressing something? Well, yeah, but is it speech? No, it's not. It's not protected. It shouldn't be protected. And so I think we've got to have some reasonable limits in what we're suggesting as speech. We could make the argument that, somebody's right to not be assaulted by their neighbor is not constitutionally protected, but free speech is. So I have a right to physically attack my neighbor. Of course, that's ridiculous and absurd. Well, how is that different? It's different in degree, but not necessarily different in form. If I decide to go out assaulting the world by appearing in public naked when nobody wants to see me naked.
Wow. Nick.
I think that's fundamentally, we've got to draw reasonable lines as to what qualifies as speech. And public nudity, that ain't it.
Well said, Jeff.
You see, actually, you're. Thanks, Adam. Because Nick, it's coming to you. I think that's probably the perfect, argument. I mean, it's certainly swaying me, Nick. Is it challenging you?
No, not at all. Jeff lives in Victorian England, and Adam grew up there. So, but if you look at this, very interesting. When Guidry pointed something out very important, that women should have the right to go topless because men do too. Adam's response was, I'm not going to answer that question. Of course he's not going to answer that question because he has no answer to that question. It is a fundamental freedom of speech right. And it's also very discriminatory against women to have that. And where some of these attorneys get off on, hey, it's okay to say God hates fags and that's protected, yet a beautiful woman walking down Miami Beach in body paint put her in jail. I don't know where you guys are getting off on. This person should not be in jail, and the person who said God hates fags, that's the person you should look at incarcerating, because that's hate speech, not the other one who's not engaged in hate speech. And you're creating hate speech when it doesn't exist.
I didn't answer the question because Guidry asked it.
Go ahead, Adam. Go ahead. I anticipate the flag, but it seems to me, on the one hand, you get to agree with Jeff because he really threw you a lifeline. But Nick is right. How can you be so hypocritical that you can protect the most, what we would all agree to be absolutely an abhorrent protest at a funeral, and yet throw a person who's walking down Miami Beach in jail? Adam?
I wouldn't protect the people who held the signs up that says God hates fags. It's despicable, disgusting conduct, and I wouldn't give it First Amendment protection. I also wouldn't give First Amendment protection to people walking naked on the street. They're not expressing any ideas. They're not engaged in any symbolic speech. They're engaged in nothing. It is not within the First Amendment's province, okay? It's common sense. This panel wants to talk about four-part test. Guidry wants to call my girlfriend obscene. All this nonsense. You guys are the ones missing the forest from the trees, okay? And you focus on the insect, not the elephant in the room, which is that it ain't speech, and Jeff's 100% right.
No, and I want to prod you on that. Just a couple of quick questions, Adam. I mean, is speech really just defined? What if they say so? Like, I'm walking down the street naked, and what if as I'm walking down, I'm telling you why I'm naked, that I'm walking naked to draw attention to the oppression of all the brown and dark-skinned people around the globe? I mean, is it what I say that converts that into First Amendment free speech, or that doesn't work?
Yes. If, for example, there were 5 naked men standing on Main Street in the stress positions that they were placed in, for example, Abu Ghraib during the Iraq War to demonstrate how horrible torture is, then the fact that they're nude would be part of an expressive activity that's protected under the First Amendment. But just being nude, that doesn't cut it. I'm sorry. That is not speech, and it deserves no First Amendment protection.
Okay, so it's nakedness plus. Guidry, what do you think of that?
Yeah.
It's nakedness plus, according to Adam.
Well, what I'm thinking about is, first of all, Nick, thank you. You said it so right. I really needed to hear what you said. And second, Adam did not answer the question even about after Nick asked him the second
Is there a mute button?
Correctly. And you know what? To say something, to conclude it, I would like to take us back to that case when the New Hampshire Supreme Court decided against a woman who had naked topless. She was topless when she was doing yoga, and the Supreme Court said that both sexes, or Supreme Court of New Hampshire said that both sexes are not fungible, and it said that females' breast almost invariably conveys sexual overtones, and that thinking we heard in 2016. Thank God, several years later, in Colorado, where I'm from, where, as Nick mentioned, I studied, there was a similar case where for Collins, the judge said, hey, he said, such stereotypes that we had been having in our society has ingrained in us that the primary purpose for woman's breast is sex, and that should be changed because there are a lot of other purposes for that. And after that hearing, the government that spent over $300,000 decided not to appeal, and then the public nudity, the topless nudity, was taken from Colorado state statute. And I applaud that, and I think that we should move forward and we should talk about it. And I think that there is certain freedom of expression, or at least discrimination, when it comes to how to be nude at certain point, at certain body part. And we know that commercialized nudity is always regulated, but when it comes to individual nudity that we were talking about, sending a message, being outside, doing something, it should be seen differently, and it should be granted certain stage in our current world.
So, Guidry, you believe that nudity is
Hey, her fan club arrived.
Nick, today
Thank you,
If he
Jesus.
thinks that a topless woman is not conveying a sexual image, then she's either blind or has bad taste.
No, actually, Adam, I mean, look, Nick, can I just get a...
That's ridiculous. Your argument is, first of all, is sexist.
Adam,
No, you're in the middle of Georgia. Go to Miami Beach and
We're
say the
talking about
same
free
thing, Adam.
speech, and
what
Guidry
about
makes...
breastfeeding, Adam? Breastfeeding.
I didn't...
Okay, well, Adam, I think partially broke up. When he comes back, I get. Adam, are you there? Well, it seems to me, Guidry, that you made the right point. And that, right. Okay. So who do we have? Jeff, you're on deck. I'm sorry, Fernando, you've been quiet for a bit. Jeff, and then we'll come back when Adam is ready. Fernando, Jeff, please.
Yeah, Bill. What's the question on the floor?
Okay, well, Guidry's got the argument that says that the law is inherently chauvinistic when it says the mere presence of female breasts is by nature, the only way you can see it is by nature, sexual, and therefore somehow should be relegated or banned or stopped, just because it is. No different than an apple just standing there. Is that true? Is that built into the law? I mean, that's what Guidry's arguing. And to an extent, I think she might be right, Fernando.
No, I do agree. In the instance where you're talking about being topless, let's say in a park or whatever, at a beach, absolutely, because men go topless all the time. You know, and the problem is that there are a lot of dummies out there that think that men don't have breasts, that only women have breasts, and they failed the basic anatomy when they were in grammar school.
Right.
You know, if you go to any park, growing up, I was in shape. We played basketball. Every so often, we would be skins versus shirts. If a woman would have done that when I was a kid, they would have gotten arrested automatically. And I remember the case in New York. It was 7 women from Rochester, and it was in 1986. And they took it up to the Court of Appeals. They went to have a topless picnic. And the court did agree that the penal code was inherently, it was biased, that men don't get arrested for walking around topless, but women do. And it does go to the point that Guidry is making, which I agree 100%.
Okay, because Adam, I'm coming to you, but Jeff,
Nothing
you're on
sexist
No,
about
Adam, I'm coming to you. Just give me this. Because listen, quite frankly, I mean, doesn't your argument fail when the following is considered? I mean, if you just say that female breasts are inherently sexual by nature and that there's no other way to define it, isn't it also true that that men's breasts, naked upper torso, is in fact sends inherently a sexual message to the gay community? I mean, why is there a difference, Adam?
Yes, I believe that it does send a sexual message. But you're misrepresenting my point. I didn't say that a woman's breasts are solely and only can be construed in a sexual way. I'm saying when women, for example, go to Mardi Gras on Bourbon Street when women are taking their clothes off, go to any rock concert when women are taking their shirts off, guess what? They're conveying something sexual. So Guidry wants to make this about sexism, racism, homophobia, transgenderism, you know, like all the liberals. But you know what? When I want to go on Main Street and have sex with my girlfriend to express my views on love and commitment, Guidry wants to shut me down and throws me into the gulag in Lithuania. She's only liking speech that she thinks is permissible. She's full of it. She is not correct on the First Amendment. Nudity is not speech. And Guidry, I'm waiting for your apology for the insult.
Can't Guidry speak for herself? Why don't we listen to Guidry?
We should mute Guidry.
Guidry says this. Guidry said, "Wait, Guidry's right here. Under the best evidence."
She called me and my girlfriend obscene, and then she's talking about sexism. It has no relationship to this conversation.
You're telling the audience what she thinks. She knows what she thinks. Let's listen to what Guidry says, not what
Guidry, you're racist.
Okay, Guidry, and then
it's a joke. I mean, that's what you're saying. You're bringing sexism in when it has no place here.
Adam,
People who
does have a place here.
For no reason.
It does. She's showing the absurdity of your position.
Yeah,
go on,
tell him,
please.
And the obscenity of my relationship. Thanks, Guidry.
No, Adam, I'm just saying, let's apply Miller's test to what you want to do, which I'm, leaning to a certain conclusion under that test. But that's it. I'm just
the first one doesn't exist in my household, huh?
Legal terms. Okay. But when it comes to what you said, I really do not find it funny. I think that I will agree with Fernando. Adam, if you have an issue with naked breast, why should our gender suffer legally and be not allowed to do certain essential
well, I'm making you suffer
just because you're going to feel aroused or you think that it's very sexual.
Right, okay.
I think that there should be a little bit more listening to women as well, because the movement is there, it's in front of your eyes, and as Nick mentioned, we already left 1990s, and we are in a different place. And our bodies, our agency over the bodies should be also celebrated. I do not understand how little children, being exposed to nipple, to breast, grow up, everything is normal. And all of a sudden it becomes taboo, it becomes no. But here you go. Look at the violence, look at the killings and shootings and everything. So, and that's the conclusion, we have Adam, who, God forbid, will see a, person doing yoga with topless, attire.
Well, that is a lie. You are intentionally misrepresenting my views.
Adam,
you're here
I don't know why
what your views are, Adam.
Yeah, well,
She's saying her views. You just tell us what your views are. You can be up.
Yeah,
You're
okay,
here.
Adam, what are your views on that? I mean,
Oh.
she's essentially saying, I mean, it's okay because kids
No,
are
Guidry,
around.
I don't want to interrupt you. Please go ahead. I don't.
He's
You know,
already done.
No, she was done. Go ahead, Adam, and Jeff, I'm coming to you. Go ahead, Adam.
Guidry is trying to paint me as a white male misogynist sexist. And I take offense to that. That's exactly what you said or what you intimated. I am a feminist. I am pro-choice. I am all about equal rights and equal pay. I'm simply saying that walking down the street naked is not speech. Jeff seems to agree, and so does Fernando. So I don't know why you decided to bring sexism into this conversation and to use it against me. I'm the last person in the world who's sexist.
Well, actually,
And you say that's not funny. It isn't funny.
She's pointing out quite correctly that there's a double standard between men and women. And the thing is, there's no defense to it, Adam. But, you know, there is a double standard here. And she doesn't. I mean,
wait. Let's ask Jeff. Jeff, I want to ask you this question. Because now, if we could take the objectification of women's breasts out of it, or at the same time agree that men who their torsos are naked as well can convey the same sexual message to the gay community as women that are topless convey to, say, the straight community, why can't we just regulate both of them the same? Or if we take sex out of it, why can't both genders do the same thing, Jack?
Well, there's a couple of things. First of all, I'm not here to defend any laws suppressing nudity or whatever. I'm here saying that those laws are not unconstitutional. For the sake of discussion, I could say that a woman's breasts are an erogenous zone, men's are not. So, I think there's a fundamental difference. But to the larger question of, shouldn't women have the right to go around and do what they want naked, and that's somehow a pro-woman stance, I think that's a very difficult argument. I mean, it is a proven fact that men are more visually stimulated than women. If you doubt it, go into a military barracks composed of just men and then go to one composed of just women and see how many pinups you find on the woman's side versus the man's side. And I just want to suggest that all of this idea about nudity, particularly female nudity, is for the gratification of men. It is objectifying women. If I'm, getting a lap dance from someone in a strip club, am I thinking about how that person giving it to me wants her eggs cooked in the morning, or what books she reads, or who she's going to vote for in the next election? No, I'm thinking about one dimension of her personality, and that's all I'm ever going to learn about her.
Okay,
so,
all right. Okay, now
it's objectifying to women.
Okay, now we're going to do our lightning round because we're running out of time, and this is the order we're going to go in. We're going to go Adam quickly, and then Fernando, you, and then Guidry, we're going to land on you just before Nick to close. So, Fernando, please. I saw you rolling your eyes and shaking your head.
Well, we have an issue on the table. A vote is nudity protected by the freedom of speech. So Fernando has to give an answer to that question. Thumbs up or thumbs down?
Thumbs up.
Right, well then, Fernando, your closing thoughts, and thumbs up or thumbs down.
Thumbs up. And I don't know what world Jeff lives in. When that woman is giving me a lap dance, I'm thinking about how she is fully expressing herself and expressing herself to take all my money. I don't know what world you're living in, dude. You should go get a lap dance and loosen yourself up. Bill, this is going to kill me to say this, but you actually brought up a good point when you're talking about shirtless men and gay men, because on West 4th, which is a basketball court in New York City, usually in the summertime, you have skins versus shirt games. Back when I was in high school, that area does have a large gay contingency, and they would gather around and they would comment on the guys' bodies, their chests, their abs, in the same fashion that, you would about a woman. So in all honesty, if you're going to make women wear a shirt, you got to make men wear a shirt. In New York State, it was settled back in 1986.
Okay, so then for our audience, if you ever go to New York, go down to West 4th Street where they play basketball, particularly on the weekends. For men that are attracted to men, it's a free peep show. So next up, I know. Next
Christopher
up,
Street is down the block.
I know, Adam. Yeah, well, first, final thoughts, but then protected by free speech or no? Adam, please.
Nudity is absolutely not protected by the First Amendment because it's not speech. And as far as Guidry saying that a woman walking down the street topless is the same as a man walking down the street topless is utterly ridiculous. And quite frankly, Guidry is not a feminist. I am. Guidry wants to objectify women by allowing women to parade around naked. That's objectifying women, like Jeff said. That's wrong. It's not speech. It gets no First Amendment protection.
Wow, make a note of that, Guidry, because wow. Jeff, I just got to get you back on the record. Thumbs up or thumbs down with free speech being protected? I mean, nudity being protected. Thumbs up or thumbs down?
No, it's not protected. Nudity is not speech. Many things we object to are speech, and the First Amendment deserves a broad reach. But I think James Madison would be absolutely astounded that what he was creating when he drafted the First Amendment was the right for Dolly Madison to parade around naked in front of anyone but him.
Well,
That's
we really
absolutely
don't know
absurd.
what kind of shenanigans went on there, but I hear you. Okay, Guidry, you are up. You've been challenged. I think the marker has been laid down that you are not a real feminist, and that Adam, because he's actually protecting women, knows more than you do. Guidry, your thoughts before we go over to Nick.
Yeah, because every feminist need to say that he or she is feminist. That's a very solid point. But I will say just one point. Jeff and Adam said and demonstrated and argued for a very dangerous idea that all female nudity is for gratification of men. And that is the precise reason why the nudity has to be protected by the First Amendment. Amen.
Excellent. Okay, we are at 2-2. Nick, you get a vote. You get to decide. It's a tie, 2 yes, 2 no, and you're it, buddy.
Well, it is protected. I'm sorry for the minority that's out there, but it is a protected form of freedom of speech. Freedom of speech is something very important in our Constitution, and so for a 3-2 vote, I believe we have a majority because Fernando was also voting in favor of this being protected. I think that we're going to see that nudity is part of protection of freedom of speech.
Well, fantastic, Nick. I mean, once again, we have gone around the horn on another subject that you wouldn't normally find around the kitchen table. But for our audience, you do now know that you have the views of the various positions. We have obviously the school of thought that Jeff and Adam support and argue for, and then we have the others that think broadly. I just want to say thank you to everyone around the world when you watch, as you watch. We here at the Lawyer's Den love it. Now, Nick, this is one of my favorite parts after, introducing you. Can you help us land this plane, Nick?
Yes, we can, and we will see everybody next time on Lawyer's Den. And Guidry goes, let's go look at something that took place 40 years ago. Who cares? Okay, that's political.